So I will talk a bit about Tailwind and a small NPM package called CVA, and in combination with that, something called the TVMerge. So at Track Unit, we decided to go with Tailwind about a little over a year ago, and that was to get a theming system that allowed us to do basically whatever we wanted in a way where we were not reliant on a specific framework, and we could build our own components without having to hack some material UI component library or stuff like that. So that gave me some pains because this is an example of a plain Tailwind component in some JavaScript framework. This is Astro, it could be anything. And what you have to do if you have a button, you add a bunch of class names, and then you also have a variant prop. And if that is primary, I need to add these class names. If it's not, it's the secondary one, I need to add these class names. And I also need to add the class name prop so that I can override the styles somehow of this component. So this button is the one here shown with no tools, and this is the output of it, and we have an awesome secondary button in this case. This is a quite simple case. It might be okay to have this in your code. You might not think it's too bad because you can encapsulate it in this button component. But as soon as you have 8 different variants and you maybe have a different style and have some compound stuff that's different between it, it gets really noisy and hard to read. So I will show you how this exact component can be done in this tool called CVA. And CVA means Class Variance Authority. So you get this CVA function that takes an object. In this, you have some base styles, which are any class names. This doesn't need to be Tailwind, it could be anything. Then you have some variance object where you can add different properties on. And in this case, we have variant of the button under the variance object. And we also have a default variant. So if nothing is decided, you get a secondary in this case. So this does the exact same thing as the other code. It fills more lines, but it's more structured. One really nice benefit of this is that in this case, I can go in here and say, now I want the danger button. And then I actually get a type error because this is fully type safe and I don't have a variant of danger inside of my system. So before we implemented this, we had a button, it had a colors prop, and it just inherited from our Tailwind theme and said, I can do all the colors. But no one wrote the CSS whenever they added a new color. So you could say that, hey, this color needs to be purple because we have a purple color, but we didn't implement it. So when you go to the UI, you just have the default button instead of the purple one. Now that is not possible because it will say, hey, there is a type error here. We cannot compile this and we cannot push it through the build system. So that is one of the things that helped us accomplish. And then, of course, what we did was we didn't say, oh, you need to add the color everywhere. Just we changed the type of the button to be whatever made sense to have for the button. We don't want our button to be every single color. Good. So in this case, I have the page that shows this button here. And I actually have a class name on this saying that the background should be blue. And that class name overrides the existing classes. So if we go back into this demo, that's not blue. We can see these are the classes that's on the actual element. And it has a BG blue. The issue here is that Tailwind generates the style sheet based on the classes. And even though blue comes after the other colors in this class name, that's not how CSS works. CSS is based on the specificity in the style sheet. And Tailwind has an order for generating different categories of their styles. So in this case, the background gray is actually more specific. It's probably lower down in the style sheet than the blue one. And that's an issue. Now you cannot override this without using important, for example. And that gives other issues if you need to override it again. So let's just jump in here. If we change it to pink, it works because pink is more specific than blue, apparently. Let's jump into TVMerge. That is the fix for this issue. If we look in this normal CVA button component, I just imported CVA from CVA, the NPM package. In the TVMerge one, I have a CVA config file. And in here, I have a hook that's incomplete. It gets all of the class names and it runs it through the Tailwind merge function. And you see the Tailwind merge up here. So now let's go in here and add the class name of pink to the button in the TVMerge variant. And now we have pink. But if we look at the style list here, we don't have the gray background anymore. It was right here before. Now it's only the pink one. So Tailwind merge basically knows, oh, you're setting the background color. And then after, you're setting the background color again, so I need to remove the former background color. And that in the CVA function, the way it outputs the elements, that is guaranteed to be the lower down in the object it is, the latter in the chain it will be. But if you have special case, I will show that in the advanced example in just a bit. And then let's get back here. So pink worked, it also worked on the other one. So yeah, that's not that cool. Let's go back to the blue. And the blue also worked for the TVMerge version. So in general, if you're doing this stuff with Tailwind and you don't want to use CVA, you can still use TVMerge if you want. You can just add the function directly to your class or class name in any JavaScript framework you are using. And you don't need to use CVA if you don't feel like you need the CVA part of it. And then let's go for a more advanced button. In case I had two variants of a button, that's not what you need in a button. You would probably have way more different things. So here we also have a button that supports disabled and transparent, and it have the two colors. And this is, if I just give it all the classes, it doesn't really work. I can't see what is the transparent version, and when I hover, I still get the hover effect and stuff like that. So if we jump into the advanced button. So this is the styles I have here. The style of the button says that, hey, if it's transparent, we need to set the background to transparent. But if it's a variant, we need to set the background to another color. I just told you that this is also using TVMerge, and the order is the order it is in the object. So therefore, this background color overrides the other background color of transparent, of course. So if I comment out this one, and then I have the exact same object here, add it back in. Now the transparent buttons are actually transparent because it's later in the object. Cool. We still have the issues of this is still a white button. I can't see the difference between the transparent and the transparent primary and secondary button. So for that, we will use compound variants, and we will say that just comment this out so you can see it better. If the variant is primary and is transparent, then we want to add the text purple. If it's secondary and transparent, we want the text to be gray. So now we get even more of the functionality we want. And then we still have the hover effects on all of these buttons. So we will add in some more compound variants to say that, hey, if it's disabled and it's primary, or it's disabled and secondary, then we will have override the text color, or I'm sorry, the hover color, those two. And also, if it's disabled and transparent, we'll make sure that the background is actually still transparent. So now we have what we expect for all cases and all compound variants. So basically, all of these different cases, if you didn't use CVA, you would have to have a JavaScript function with a bunch of if statements or switch case or whatever to handle all of these edge cases where multiple variants crossing over each other. But these tools make it a lot easier for you, and you also get the full type safety. So I cannot say that, oh, if it's a danger variant, then no, this is typed based on the object right on top. Yes. One more small thing that it can do that I don't have in the demo, but in this case, I have added the props up here and said, hey, we have these styles and these variants. You can also use CVA to actually get a TypeScript props object out that you can just use directly from the CVA. So now CVA can define which props are allowed on your component based on the CVA you have created. And in many cases, you would do that by saying, oh, this is my button props, and that extends this CVA interface. And then you have one place, one source of truth that's inside of CVA. In this case, I like to be more specific and say, hey, this is the ones we have in the props, just to show it. And CVA is on a CVA.style. You can go in there and have a look at it. I learned about it from someone working at Discord, and they apparently use it on Tailwind for the Discord app as well. And there is a beta version, that's the one we used in the demo. For the newest version, that's a bit different, a bit more updates and some nice features that is not in the current release version. So have a look at that if you want to play around with it. And then TVMerge is called the Tailwind merge on NPM. And also a really nice tool to have a look at if you're working with Tailwind or any other atomic design system where you have a lot of classes you need to handle. Yes, that was it from me. I did a speed run to make it up for Mads'. Thank you. 5 minutes. Any questions for CVA or Tailwind?
When you build your own component libraries and use, I don't know if you use it, when you add this CVA, will you then again have React render the style?
No.
The components, or do you actually have things?
It is just the output. CVA is just taking in your properties and it's outputting the class list as a string. So all the styles are still in the Tailwind CSS file that Tailwind generates. So you still have a static CSS that you download along with your app.
Okay. And you still gain the performance that you wouldn't if you could use some embedded styling.
Exactly. It's not like a Tailwind or whatever it's called, the other tool you can get where you have type safe Tailwind in your app, because that adds style tags on for every single component in your DOM. This is just a link to one style sheet that is generated once, and then this one small CVA function is of course running on runtime, taking the props, outputting the correct class list. So no big performance hit like you would with other tools, but still, of course, it is validating it with this small library CVA instead of your custom code. I don't know who's better, is the CVA developer or your custom code for the class list selection.
Just a comment on the TVMerge. It's not a free package to pull in. It needs to know all the semantic versioning or semantic behavior of all the table classes. So if you can avoid it, or if you do some quick front page or something, it would be a bit aware.
Yeah.
But you're just doing some big bundle anyway, maybe 5% bigger.
Yeah. And you can also get around most of it with these compound variants, of course. You still have the issue with the class names where if you need to override, you need to make it important.